Hey guys, and welcome to the Business Brain Dump podcast. It's Jamie from Autoenhance and Andrea.
Andrea with Cough Tree Enterprises, and I love how official it sounds now that we have a name, the Business Brain Dump.
We've made a lot of changes since the last recording, which only feels like a couple of weeks ago, but I think it
It
was
really
a month
does.
ago. It just time flies. This is the way it is.
I'm out of the
Um, Out of
boot.
the boot, out of the moon boot.
No boot.
So no more traveling to space.
No, it came off the day before the Kentucky Derby. So I was able to wear some little baby heels to Derby. So that was perfect.
I think we recorded on the day the boot came off because that was the
Yes.
topic of the last recording. So yeah, Kentucky Derby must have been the day after, and that's like a big horse race in
Yeah,
Kentucky,
it
the
is.
biggest.
So oh, absolutely. Kentucky Derby is what sends the horses on to the Preakness and other national, international horse races. So it is a huge day. Louisville, Kentucky just completely shuts down the whole
Oh
week
wow,
almost. I mean, they have an event Thursday, which is Thurby. So there's a lot of networking there. And then Friday, which is Oaks. And then Saturday is the big race. They run for the roses. So
oh
it's, yeah,
wow, and everyone's
pretty
dressed
big
up.
deal.
Everyone's got their little
Oh,
hats on,
crazy. Not little hats, honey, like massive
massive
hats. The
hats.
bigger the hat, the better. If you don't
That's
follow me on
interesting.
Instagram, go follow me. I decided this year to make my hair into the hat. Did you see that?
I
So I had
did,
all
yeah,
these
yeah. It was like the
roses
red
and
roses in your hair.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's
Because the
crazy.
race, they call it Run for the Roses. So Derby is predominantly a lot of red, and then
Mm,
Oaks is the lily. So it is all pink. So a lot of
yeah.
people will wear pink Friday. So little
Oh, nice.
Kentucky
So you
tip for
changed it
you.
up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But and did you win any money? You betted on any horses?
I networked the whole time and
Ah,
drank wine.
smart, smart. Turned it into a business event. So now you've got some new leads, people wanting to buy houses.
Yeah, I did. I made a lot of fun friends. I actually tried to sell a yacht while I was there. It was the most random thing, and I know we're not
Sell a
supposed to
yacht.
tangent. Yeah, so we're at the bar, and I was getting another wine, and we were all connecting with like where everyone's from. And this guy knew one of my friends, Jason Farabee, who you met also at Inman, Jason from Louisville. He opened up the first agency, the agency, Mario Yamaski's company in Louisville, and he was introducing me to this guy, and he's like, yeah, I brought my wife to this Lake Cumberland out here, and I wanted to buy this mega houseboat, not really a yacht, this mega houseboat. He was like, it was so luxury. And he kind of was telling me about what this guy was into, and I was like, did you buy the houseboat? And he's like, no, the guy wouldn't sell it. I'm like, wouldn't happen to be so and so. And he was like, how do you know him? And I call my friend up, and I'm like, tell so and so, like, he's got to sell his boat. And they couldn't get the numbers together, so it didn't work. But they were like
Ah,
literally both of them countering while I was there at Derby. It was hilarious.
oh wow. Okay, so it's not about the horses then. It's all about the side deals.
For me, yeah, I always meet so many people, so it's so fun to
That's
go and
amazing.
network. I'm not a
Yeah,
gambler, but
but you were also
so
in Miami.
yes, I was just in Miami.
Yeah,
Just got
fresh
back
back.
Thursday. Yeah, I got back Thursday. Today's Saturday. So Friday was crazy. Back, I had a couple
Yeah.
of different development projects we're working on, but Inman was amazing. It was another Inman conference, which anybody who knows me knows that's my favorite really, it's really my favorite connecting event to meet other people in real estate, people who work in and on and around real estate. It's the best way to connect. It's not just because I'm an ambassador. Honestly, I became an ambassador because I
Small
went so
plug.
much and loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked amazing. And this is the first one that was in Miami, right? So it previously it was always Vegas and New York, and
Yep.
they've just extended it to two extra locations. So it's interesting. How was the turnout compared to New York and LV?
Um, Extremely minimal. Like as far as the crowd, it was a lot less. Like we didn't even
Yeah.
fill up the New World Center. Whereas in
Mm.
Vegas, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah.
people there. But it's kind of funny because if you had asked me up until Thursday evening, I would have hands down, Vegas is the best. That's the one you have to go to. It's better than New York. That would have been my answer. But there was something magical about Miami because you've got the ocean, you've got the sand. So the last day I was there with a really good group of girls, and the last day there, that morning, we all met downstairs for coffee, had a long walk on the beach, and we just really talked about like what are our biggest challenges, like what are we going
Mm.
back tonight to work on in our business. And we had a lot of like accountability beach walk, and you got the ocean and the sand, and you just feel super grounded. And I really
Yeah.
left there extremely refreshed. Whereas when I leave Vegas, refreshed is not a word that I would use at
Recovery
all.
state. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
I
think
need to
that's the
recover.
thing with different conferences, though. When Inman is so huge, there's 3,000 people or something like that. There's a crazy number of people that
Hmm.
come to that conference. So yeah, there are some good connections that are made from it. But you could be meeting new people every day
Yeah,
and having new conversations and new relationships with all these people. When you're in a smaller crowd, that's where you can kind of repetitively meet up with these people, engage with them,
yeah.
see them more frequently to really work out what value you can provide to each other.
If you lose your group in Vegas, you have to be pretty like, I'm going to find you. Where are you? Wait for me. I'll meet you
You just
there. The
find someone
Miami
else.
one, yeah, the Miami one was very, you could find each other anywhere. And then New
Yeah.
York is a really nice meet in the middle. And New York, I feel like is super reviving because it's such a business atmosphere. You're like,
Mm.
everyone is hustling here 24/7. So you leave there with this like hustle culture mindset. And Miami, I left feeling grounded, which is not something I would have equated with Miami previously. And then
Interesting. Yeah.
Vegas is just so massive and so big and so energetic and so many connections. It can be overwhelming, your first one, but I mean, even my first one, I was implementing things as soon as I got back. And in true Inman fashion, on the flight back home, one other thing I want to follow up on from our last call, we talked about working, on the business, not in it, and filling those spots. Well, remember,
Mm.
I had the intern for the
Yeah.
property
That
management
was just
gig.
starting last time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this Thursday will be the fourth week, and on the flight home from Miami, I typed up her formal employment offer and sent it to her, and she did accept. So
Amazing.
we're just working
Yeah.
on the official start date. So yeah,
Fantastic. Well, everything's moving, isn't it? That's
yeah,
really exciting. So you've gone through the process of actually, delegating, associating processes to someone new. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to learn a bit more about that the last four
yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. And the other thing that I took immediate action on was offloading marketing. So I've got this amazing intern, Kate. She's a finance major at Clemson. She's young. She knows social media. So I completely automated the Instagram, the TikTok, YouTube. And I also had them helping me set up our marketing for Business Brain Dump. And you and I have a call with Ashley and Kate on Tuesday to kind of work through scheduling as well. I still want my social to be social. I never want
Mm.
social to be something two VAs are handling or that my team just posts random stuff. I want my Instagram to be Andrea. I want our podcast to be Andrea and Jamie. I think so many people take socialization out of social media. Like, I'm on there to connect with you. The moment I find out, when you meet someone, you're like, this isn't this guy or gal's Instagram
Yeah, yeah.
persona because they're
It's
not
not
the ones
authentic.
behind it. I
Yeah,
don't like that. So I will always be, but it's more, hey, I really want to post X, Y, and Z, but I've got appointments all day. Post these. They send
yeah.
me all the captions, run everything by me. So you are still getting 100% Andrea on my personal, my business, but just help with actually releasing the content pretty much.
It keeps you accountable. I think that's
Yeah.
the main part of it, right? So when it's just yourself posting, you kind of do it here and there, and it's hard to get into the routine. But when you actually have someone who's like, we need a video for tomorrow, or you haven't put anything out here, it keeps
Yep.
you accountable that actually, okay, I need to do some stuff for them. And it just creates this structure that is repetitive, which is, we're what is it? We like habits, right? We
Yeah.
like routines, and
Consistency.
exactly. And I think it's really easy once you have that habit and that routine to just stick at it. At the start, it's new, it's fresh, but the more and more you do it, it just goes into the background, and before you know it, you're doing it on autopilot. So
Yeah.
yeah. Something from the previous recording, you were going to reread the E-Myth book. Have you reread the E-Myth book?
So I'm halfway there.
Wow. So you have
Yeah, I
started it again.
lost. Uh, so I lost a little
I thought I was going to catch you
time
out.
just being in Miami, but I did go back and I got to where he started talking about processes.
Yeah.
And I do want to, before we forget, let's come back to, I want to hear how your offloading tasks went. But I thought something because I did get, I've read it before, but it just really kind of helped re-engage and refresh. And it sounds super sexy, right? To say, work on your business, don't just work in it. But in all practicality, give me like 3 tips, 3 takeaways that someone who is either just starting their business or is struggling to take that leap to work more on the business. Like, give me 3 things that someone could implement starting now
Mm.
to work towards.
Yeah. I think something that we experience, so I'll dive into this a bit more about our experience. What I didn't realize is how important documentation is. My thought was, surely it's just instinct. Surely people just know, you know, obviously from our side, it's very technical, building a tech product. Surely people know the sort of processes and tests that you need to do before submitting some new code that needs to go into production, or working on a new feature, or running into problems. When one of our team runs into a bug or an issue, how to resolve it. I just thought it was intuition, that it just comes to mind how to do it, how to resolve it. But no,
That's because
these
you're the
are,
entrepreneur.
yeah, I think it's, I've been doing this for years. I've been doing it every day for years. So for me, it's intuition, or it's just something that's baked in. But for someone who's new to this is completely new. They don't understand the sort of ways to solve these problems, or the checks that you need to do before pushing the new code. So I was always against documentation because I thought it would slow you down, and we move really quickly. We make changes all the time. So documenting was always the devil to me. So what I was actually trying to do is find ways to document these processes that were not time consuming. And my favorite tool for this, and I think it's one of your favorite as well, is Loom. So Loom, I will just record some of the ways that I check things, or the ways that we use some of the features that we've built. And
Hmm.
I've done the recording in less than a minute. And now the whole team has access to that. So
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing I started off with, is
Documentation.
documenting.
And for you,
Documentation.
a great tool is Loom, Loom, which is free
Yes.
video recording. So Jamie can literally open Loom, and I do this with real estate. I do this with how to start, a file, how to start a sheet, where to find documentations, our leasing processes, and it shows you and your screen, and you can walk people through exactly what you're doing, your thought process, how you're doing it, why you're doing it. So that's a really
Yeah.
good takeaway.
Yeah. The second one I would say is, prepare yourself to be detached. I think as business owners, it's very easy to see your business as your baby, and you're giving part of your baby to someone else to look after,
Yeah.
and take ownership of. And I think for me, that was a very difficult step to have in making this change. But ultimately, if you want to build something big, if you want to build something that can scale, you know, you need to be letting these people do the things that they're capable of doing. And so for me, that was a big one.
Yeah.
I was, yeah, yeah. I think I've got the third point as well, but I'm gonna get onto the second one. Finish the second one first. So yeah, it's really, letting people who are much better than you at that task do it, or at least let them flourish into it as well.
And the funny
Um,
thing is, you said really quick about it's your baby and you don't want to give away your baby. But this just came to me also. So I'm a parent, of course, Leighton very well, and he's such a great kid. But I don't think one person can make a great kid, right? I think it takes so many different people in their lives. You have a child, you're not, most of us aren't nurses. We're not well versed in changing diapers and swaddling
Mm.
babies and feeding schedules. And if they get, there's so many crazy, crazy things when you have a newborn baby. And if I had tried to just do all of that on my own, there's absolutely no way. I mean, I use the wisdom of, my mom, my cousins, my aunts, and my mom showed me how to swaddle him and, how to do so many things that
Mm.
she had done 3 times before. And even
Yeah.
though my younger brother, who you've met as well, was like my doll growing up, I just, was with him all the time. I was there for his first steps. But I think that it's funny that we equate that with business. No one wants to give up their baby and it's their baby. But if you were to be honest and you had been a parent, like, oh my God, some of the best decisions and things you made were something somebody else showed you and taught you. I
Yeah.
even know, like, going to baby showers, like, you'd be like, you have to use this, you have to do this. And you're like, I never even thought of that. And your
Mm.
business is kind of like that, right? And
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
think you're trying to bring in people that have a different strengths to you as well,
yeah,
right? Understanding what you're good at and what you're bad at is really important because you want to make sure that the person who is the most organized, the manager type, as they talk about it in the book, is overseeing and making sure people are following the systems and the processes that you put in place. The technicians are the ones that are really advancing the product. So to think that you could have all of those skills and be the best at them is not a positive way to grow the business. And I don't think
yeah,
many people have that opinion. But I think being able to let go or at least give up parts of it, it takes time to get there for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. The third one, I'm trying to think what my third point is. And I had it just a few minutes ago and it's completely gone.
So should I get, so my
You
first
go for
one,
some.
which is funny that you said, documentation. So anytime, and I actually gave this advice on the beach to a friend who was struggling, she was like, I just don't have enough time in the day. And I'm like, what does your admin do? How many hours a day is he there? And her admin, she has one admin, and he's there from like, it was like, you know, they'll say 10 to like 3. So not like a 9 to
Mm.
5. I'm like, well, first thing, you've got someone there that's capable, ready to go. Extend the hours. That's your first step. Get more hours out of someone you've already trained who's already a part of your team. And it's like scary, right? Because anytime you hire someone new and you don't have documentation and you don't have systems and processes, you can't keep that person busy. Be realistic.
Mm.
You can't. You don't have, you're so busy trying to keep the business going. What do you offload? How do you offload it? How do you teach someone? So, my number one, I wrote this one down because this is, in my mind, brilliant, is to start to document your daily tasks, not gym, coffee, document emails. How
Mm.
long did that take you? What types of emails are you even responding to? Scheduling showings. How many showings? What are the processes to schedule showings? How do you schedule those showings? Files. How long are you working on file follow up, email templates? Do you have email templates? If you don't, you should, because you could find that if you actually write down your daily tasks, you're going to find, hey, I'm spending, you know, an hour, 2 hours a day just scheduling showings and then implementing that into a calendar and then putting in addresses and then following up on those showings. Someone else could do that so
Yeah.
easy, right?
Yeah.
Or so it's just really about the first step is the system. What is the system? Just like Sarah in the pie shop, right? Writing down the recipes, just like you using Loom, taking time to document the processes. My number one, if you have an admin, if you don't, whether you're struggling to take the next step or you've not even made your first hire, I took because, my formal training is Master's of Business Administration. We had to document a lot. We had to do a lot of business plans. So
So
8
you're a
years
document nerd.
ago, yeah, well, I am. 8 years, I love Google Drives, Google Docs, like that's my thing. And
Spreadsheets, the whole lot.
yes, I love it. And so what I started doing with property management and with real estate was I started writing down this was really, I used to lose sleep at night over transactions. So our transaction software is proprietary because it's my brain. It's literally Andrea's process. And there's this sheets where I would just start, like I just showed a client a house. What's the best way to follow up with this client and keep it consistent every time? There's a checklist. I just closed a deal. What went wrong with that deal? Go back, write the process. What could have you done better? And you
Mm.
make these collaborative documents. So number one is write down your daily tasks, write down your systems. And number two is similar to Loom, is like create that employee handbook for those repetitive tasks. All right. I want you to start scheduling my showings, Jamie.
Yeah.
How, right?
Yeah.
So take the time to write down. First thing is step A, B, C, and D, you're done, right? And so that if you lose an employee unexpectedly, you have a handbook. You're not lost. You're not starting from zero. And also so that when you make that first hire or that next hire, you have something to hand off and show and teach. And they're not
Yeah.
just coming in and you're like, why did I hire this person? They're not doing anything. Well, you haven't even given them tasks, right? So what are they supposed to be doing?
I would also say that don't be afraid to do it now, right? I
Yeah.
think there's a bit of hesitation that, oh, I haven't quite figured out my process or it's not quite repetitive. Just document what you have today and then you can iterate on it. And that's exactly what we found as well. We've only been doing this for 4 weeks now. And a big part of what we're doing is checking the quality of property images. And the way that we were sharing that with the team was quite distracting. And the only way I worked that out is because I do these one-on-ones with my team members, and one of them was like, "Oh, I'm really focused on this project, and then I'm getting pulled onto this quality check, which is quite minor, and it's something we can fit into the larger roadmap." So we're already starting to iterate the process, but if we hadn't have already tried something, we wouldn't know what works and what doesn't work. So I wouldn't be afraid to just go for it and learn from it. I mean, that's just how I kind of roll. But I think it's really important that you just kind of go with what you have and then review those processes and those systems over time, because they're only going to get better the more you do it.
I call them red flags for improvement. If you don't start somewhere, you can't improve anything. And so the market changes. Photo editing changes. What your clients want changes. So you are going to be editing these processes, if you're good at what you do, continuously. I mean, we
Yeah.
might have a new agent who comes in and they're like, wait, why are we doing it this way? And if you're just like, because this is the way it's done, you're missing out. What do you mean? Ask, be inquisitive, be willing to learn, be willing to change. Just because this is your process does not mean it's the best process, right?
Yeah.
You could be
Yeah.
dropping the ball completely in a whole new way to do things and you miss it. So if you've got a document, that's the first thing. And then really my next one was just create that employee handbook to teach people how to do it. And that could be as easy as, our sheets, our step-by-step process, and then your looms, teaching people how to do it. And my last one was hire to fill your gaps and your tasks. So
Mm.
exactly like you mentioned, you already had someone on staff who was perfect for what you needed, but you weren't letting go of that. And I think that we sometimes realize I do not need or want. I used to always say, I need an agent just like me. I want somebody as hungry as me, as motivated as me. I want, a little Andrea 2.0. And no, I don't.
Mm.
I like that my agents, some of them are calmer than me. Some of them are, slower paced than me. Some of the, we all have different approaches, and it helps give, clients the option who
Yeah. Who do they want to
sometimes
work
I'm
with?
like, this client would be best for Hannah. This client's best for Brock. This client's best for Mason, and it's just about being able to have different personalities to bring the team as a whole. I mean, you
Mm.
can imagine if you were married to yourself, what a train wreck that would be. Like Brendan and I are totally opposite. Like he's calm and he thinks before he speaks. I'm crazy and I say anything, and it's a good balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what is also important is the identity of your business as
Mm-hmm.
well. As a startup, our identity is go fast and break things. But if we truly want to grow the business and work with large companies, the last thing a large enterprise company wants to hear is, Yeah. So our ethos is that we go fast and break things. You're going to
Yeah.
use Autoenhance, and the next day it's going to be broken, but then we'll fix it up. They want to know that it is consistent. It's the infrastructure is in place. We have customer services processes in
Hmm.
place. That was a large thing for me to grasp, because my whole uh, idea about Autoenhance and running my business is we don't want to be corporate. We don't want to have these processes and systems in place. But in a way, we already had them. We just hadn't really labeled them. We were doing things over and over every day. We just hadn't fully structured them or documented them. So I don't know. I don't know if it's healthy for a business, on day one to start doing this, or whether it's something that develops over time. Whether once you've actually got product market fit, once you've actually got some traction, some revenue, then it's the time to start doing this. That was something that I was thinking about after reading the book.
Yeah.
For you, I guess, from growing your business, making that first bit of revenue, the idea of a real estate agency is quite well established. So
Well,
once you
mine
start
actually
making it,
came from mistakes. It was actually mistakes. It came from a need of, God, that last closing was perfect. If I
mm,
could duplicate
replicate that.
that,
Yeah,
which reminds me of the chapter of the book where he talks about the hair salon. And the reason he left that hair
the
salon was because
experience.
it
Yeah,
was different every single time.
yeah,
And my process, my buyers, my lead follow up, my buyer process for closing was different every time. My
yeah,
listing, I hated taking listings. I didn't have it narrowed down to a science. And I never have anything too nailed in. Like I said, I'm always growing, always learning, always changing. But when I started losing sleep at night, it was because I was busy and I was
mm,
making mistakes. I was going fast and breaking things. And I was like, I want to go fast and give a consistent, I don't care if you're listing $1 million
yeah,
or $100,000 home. I want to be able to give you essentially, I mean, there's some
yeah,
things you can't afford to do on $100,000 property that you can on 1 million, but I want my services to be consistent. And the
yeah,
way I was able to handle the transaction, hire transaction coordinators, because here's exactly what I want you to do.
yeah.
You have
Okay.
to inspect what you expect. And if you don't have expectations set, what are you inspecting? So
Yeah,
we've
it
talked about this
requires a lot of
before.
discipline.
Yeah, it really
Yeah,
does. You have
from
clear
the top.
KPIs. I don't yet. So if any
Mm,
agents out there have KPIs they're tracking that they want to share, I mean, yeah, things like sales metrics, but for staff, it's a little harder to really track the
mm,
TCs, I feel like. But
yeah,
um, basically, I do by making sure everything was checked off and I don't have questions that aren't filled out in our process.
yeah, yeah. I think we've talked about all the good things
Yeah.
on this ideology of documenting, having the structure in place, being disciplined.
Yeah.
There are, I wouldn't say bad things, but things in process at the moment,
Hmm.
right? So from your side, do you feel like you've got there yet, or do you feel like it's still a work in progress? There's still, because I think you're still very much in the way, much like I'm in the way of my business, where we're trying to really build our business into something that can be bigger.
Yeah.
What do you think is blocking that?
Well, I think that through talking with you off line, I realized that I have two very separate businesses, in all honesty. One is Cough Tree Enterprises, which is the OG. That's the turnkey solutions, the investments, the property management.
Yeah,
And then I have Cough Tree Enterprise Real Estate, which is my real estate team buying, selling, transaction coordination, right? And even though they feed each other and it's this beautiful symbiotic, relationship, but
in an
they
ideal
need
world.
different, yeah, they need different staff, right?
Yeah,
And before it was myself and Josie just out here, gunslinging, taking care of it all. And like I mentioned on the last call, I never knew which hat I was wearing. And we can keep it together, but I needed someone whose job is to service the owners of the real estate portfolios,
Yeah.
service the tenants, handle all the leasing because balls are being dropped. And I mean, this just happened. I had an agent who was handling a lease, and I don't like to get too down in the weeds of my own stories, but this is what happens when you don't delegate. When there isn't someone running point on different aspects of your business, they seep through the crack.
Yeah.
And I had an agent who was supposed to be taking two of our listings, rental listings live. One she took live, filled up that unit. While she was filling that unit, she was showing the one next door. She thought she had a tenant. I'm like, just, you have to keep showing it. You have to keep marketing it. She's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm so busy that while this agent was, and don't be scared for your staff to take vacation, because when they do, that is when you will find out if they're doing their job or not. That is the only way to find out,
Yeah.
because they can sweep so much under the rug. And I'm like, what is going on? I haven't even seen a lead come through for that rental. We rent those normally in 2 weeks. I'm covering the mortgage on this. And I'm bad to let my things fall to the back seat, and my owner investors are the front seat. And
Mm.
I'm like, Josie, where are we at on this? And she was like, she doesn't even have that on market. I'm like, how the hell was this not brought to my
Just slip
attention? What are
through.
you talking
Yeah.
about? It's not on the market. She's like, well, she thought she had that one um, tenant and it didn't work out, and she's been gone to the Bahamas. And it's like,
Oh my God.
woosah, Andrea, woosah. That was the day. And I was talking to you. I'm like, I have to have someone whose sole job is property
Yeah.
management and leasing. We've grown
Yeah. Yeah.
enough, and we should have already done it. Normally, by the time you hire, you should have already done it, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
we've got her now, and so hopefully all goes well. She'll be starting full time. But I think you really have to delegate. You have to, because you cannot do it all, and
No.
my systems will never be complete. I want
Yeah.
to
And
grow and
and that
learn and change
process as
constantly.
well is something that is repetitive, right? Just making
Hmm.
sure that all these leads, if they're ready to be on market, are on market. It would
Yep,
take someone, less than half an hour to do those checks. But
easy. Yep,
yeah, unless you have that process in place and you know it's being done, it just falls through the cracks.
yep.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
problem
Interesting.
was, the agents love the opportunity to work leases because it's free money, basically.
Yeah.
You're going to rent the property, it's going to rent for that amount. We give them a huge chunk of that because it is a
Yeah.
lot of time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what was happening, Josie and I are trying to do everything. And then you've got these agents supposed to be doing things. And
Yeah.
sometimes when they don't, we're you have this certain level of respect and trust, right, with people on your team, where, Jamie, if you delegate this to one of your team members, you shouldn't have to stand over them.
No. Yeah.
But
You
balls
and
get
it's
dropped.
exactly. Yeah. But you also want to empower them, that you're
Yeah,
trusting them with this and that they're capable of doing it. By standing over their shoulder, it kind of diminishes their impact. It's
it
difficult
does.
for them. Yeah. Yeah. So we're 4 weeks into this, and what we did is I started reading the book and I was blown away. I think I finished it in 4 days. I was
Wow.
like, this is gospel. This is something that we really need to learn from and start using. And so I was very fresh when we had our last recording that we were going to start doing this. So I shared it with the team, shared it with my chairman, shared it with my COO. Both of them read it over a weekend as well. So we
Wow.
were from Friday to Monday, all three of us had read the book. And we're like, yeah, how are we going to make this work? And a big topic of that conversation was really, do we want to have processes in place? Like, we were talking about our identity
Hmm.
as a startup. We want to be innovative. We want to go fast and break things. But at the same time, we've got these large customers now that don't want to be dealing with infants. They want to be dealing with, grown up companies that have these systems in place.
Yeah.
So my
More
hardest
along the
challenge,
maturity stage. Yeah.
yeah, my hardest challenge was just convincing the team that we need to do this. That was stage one.
Hmm.
Stage two was also breaking habits. We started the business, myself and my chairman, Adrian. And then as we grew, we brought more team on, and now we're up to a team of 8. And there was never a moment where we said, right, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of that. I think it was always assumed that Jamie will just kind of keep on top of things. Like, sure, yeah, we'll do a bit of customer service and this and that, but we hadn't really established who's in charge of what and how does that happen on a weekly basis.
Yep.
So for our CTO, who James
So we're
is,
dealing right now with delegation and a
yes,
consistency that your customers can grow to learn, love, and respect.
yeah, but I think this is like first-hand information of
Yeah.
how a company that never really put this structure in place started to put the structure in place. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say we're smashing it. I'd say we're just at the starting point, and I hope in a year's time I go, wow, we're in such a better position than we were a
Yeah.
year ago because we made this change.
So the first
Also,
step really was you got everyone on board, right? Because that's important.
exactly. Yeah, I think as the CEO, as the founder, if you're not excited about this, if you're not committed to this, how can you expect your team to not be committed and excited? And
Yeah.
I think I just kept going on about this book that people were like, right, we're just going to read it so Jamie shuts up and then we can get back to work. So I think that was really important, though. I didn't want to be telling them what to do. I wanted them to read the book and have their own
Yeah.
opinions so we can work together in making this happen, because my business isn't just me, it's a team of amazing people, and we play to each other's strengths to make this such a great business. So that was really important. Another realization I had over that weekend whilst they were all reading the books: what a rubbish name for a book, The E-Myth. The title does not explain
Anything.
the book. This is
Yeah.
because I was thinking back. I was editing the video, and you told me back in Ramsey's the book, and I remember you telling me something e-book, and I thought, was it email, something like that? Yeah, I just couldn't remember the name
Yeah.
of the book. If the title of the book was "Working on Your Business, Not in It," or "Systems and Delegation for Growing an Amazing Business," I think everyone would have read this book.
Or even if
It's
it was literally because it stands for entrepreneurial myth, right? So that's E-myth.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Because the whole book is about the myth of entrepreneurs, right? And
Yeah,
this ideal system, this ideal kind of dream that a lot of entrepreneurs are really just dreamers. There's no
yeah,
systems, there's no tools, there's no processes. So that's
yeah,
kind of the whole thing, is busting the myth of you might have a great idea. This might be the best idea in the world, but without
yeah,
execution, you have nothing. You're going to
yeah,
find
yeah,
yourself hating your passion, hating your business. Like Sarah in the book, she's
yeah,
like, I hate pies, you know?
yeah,
It,
yeah.
so I think, yeah,
They need a
entrepreneurial
new
myth.
title though. I'm not happy with that. Anyway, so back to my CTO. So I spoke to my CTO after that, and I was like, I want you to really own the product. You're the one that says what goes into Autoenhance 4.2, 4.3. Justin, our COO, and myself, we'll have a call with you on a Monday morning, and we'll share what we're hearing back from customers, what we're hearing back from users, what we're observing from our quality checks that we're doing internally, and then you work out how that goes into the versions of Autoenhance. And when we showed up to that first meeting on Monday, he had this whole document ready. He had already put together ideas. He's always been in charge of the product, but we'd never really established that. I was always the
Mhm.
one that said, new feature, let's try and get it out by tomorrow, and it's not that stable, it's broken. So
Yeah.
his ownership now of that part of the business is to make sure that I do not rush getting things out too quickly, which results in a more stable product. So that was, one of the first changes we did. The other was
Quality
working with
control sounds like.
it was a delegation. So it was
Yeah.
being very clear of what he was in charge of. And, it wasn't set in stone. It's something
Mhm.
that we always revisit. We always have one-on-ones to work out how do we iterate on what we have today. And then on my COO as well, it was the same thing. It was, what are you owning in the business? So he is owning our customer service. He's the one checking the messages that come through every day, the emails from support customers, and he's associating that with the right developers or someone in the team. And that alone freed me up so much because I now know he only works 4 days a week, a Dutch thing. He,
I want
I
to be
know,
Dutch.
yeah, it's pretty great. Monday to Friday, apart from Thursday, I know that I don't need to check our customer support
Wait,
at all.
why does he? What's Thursday? I
So
don't work
that's when he's
Thursdays
off.
either.
That's when he's off. So, but for me, previously, Monday to Friday, I'm always like keeping an eye on our support because if one of
Mm-hmm.
our big customers come through and we don't deal with that support within 20 minutes of that message coming through, I am, I just know that they're going to be angry or something like that. So to be able to not have that in the back of my mind, Monday, every day except for Thursday, it meant that I could just get really focused on other parts of the business.
Yeah.
So that already has tremendously helped. Just you don't really notice it, right? It takes very little time out of my day to to answer these support questions, but to know that you don't actually need to be involved at all on those days just gave me all this free time to start working on other areas like how do we improve our sales? How do we improve these new features that are coming out? How do we market these new features?
Yeah.
Sorting out finance, having more sales calls. It just
Well, let
freed
me
me up
ask you,
tremendously.
I'm going to interject really quick and say, do you also feel like part of that wasn't necessarily the time? Like you said, it was quick, you could do it, you could handle it, it was fine. But I
Yeah,
think what a lot of times as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a CEO, you don't realize that it's not the time, it's the stress, right? It's that
yeah,
in the back of your head that
exactly.
and then it's stressful, and then you're bringing up things that really could have easily been handled, but now you're upset with a part of the team, and it just
Yeah,
disrupted something that you're trying to do on a higher level. I think we're bad not to delegate things that feel minor when sometimes those are the easiest things to delegate. And customer service
100%.
is the number one thing, right? Of course,
Exactly.
but for you trying to work on the business and not in it, that was a very much in it task that you were hesitant to let go of.
100%. Yeah. So that alone has helped massively. And also because he's such a manager type, he is starting to work out, what those repetitive processes are.
Yeah.
Because having him full time on customer service is not a great use of his time. So
Hmm.
when we hire someone to do customer service, we know it's going to be handled correctly because he's got those processes
So
documented, which
something
is
like
huge.
documented processes and systems with a little handbook on how it's done so that when
Exactly.
you're ready to hire, you actually have a position to hire for. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you just tied that up like with a little bow and said, boop.
I'd love to say that was planned. And
No, but
yeah,
I
I
feel
think
like that was perfect.
that kind of brings me on to my third point as well. I always assumed when we hired people that they would just know what to do when they join us, which is not
Yeah.
the case. By
No.
giving them this guide and giving them this documentation of this is what you do, they can just fly. They can just really
Yeah.
focus. They know how the business works. They don't have to bother you. So yeah, I think that would be massive. The last thing experience in the last 4 weeks that I was really hoping to do is step away from the product. So when we
Okay.
last had the call, I'd put myself away about 90% from the product,
Hmm.
but I think I have to blame America here for this. But we have a hire in America who is this is going to cancel the podcast. No, it won't. We have a guy in America who works for us. So
Hmm.
he's just wrapped up in his masters. So he was doing an internship for his last semester with us. So
Okay.
he's
I remember
completed
when you
that
hired
now.
him. Weren't you
Exactly.
hiring
So
him when we were at Liberty's in London?
I was trying to get the visa stuff sorted. So he's from
Okay.
India and lives in America, in LA, and he does his master's. So he needs a CPT to work for us. And because he's graduated, which happened in like the 10th of May, that's ended. So
Okay.
in order for him to work for us again, he has to get his OPT, which is going to take so long, which means we're down a developer. So I've had to step
Wow.
in, but what I've made sure of is that I'm not leading the development. So I'm not focused on these big tasks that are going to be like seismic changes for Autoenhance. I'm very much doing the tidying up. If you think like
Hmm.
you're baking a cake, all I'm doing is putting the sprinkles on top. I'm not doing
Yeah.
any of the
I
baking,
love
any of the
sprinkles.
icing, just a little bit on the top, or maybe
A
the cake
cherry on
isn't,
top.
or the cake isn't perfectly round, and I'm just trimming the edges off and
Yeah.
making sure there's enough sugar. So um, that's helped me as well, that I'm not in the way. That was my biggest problem, because I
Yeah.
was working on critical parts of the product, and because I was getting pulled into financial stuff, sales meetings, it delayed getting those features out. Whereas I've given more of that to my incredible developers that are working on the AI, who've done an amazing job. So yeah, I feel like it's like the first spin of the wheel. We're first movement of the cogs, and we're starting to get to where it needs to be, starting to get to that hum, which is needed to grow the business. So yeah, I'm bloody excited. I can't
Some
wait.
automation for Autoenhance.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
quite ironic how unautomated it is. So,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think so many businesses are like this. And yeah, I really think, yeah, this book just kind of came at the right time. So I'm excited to update more as we go on. When our
Yep.
developer
Same.
comes back on the OPT, yeah, hearing about you as well. Like, if you're able to at
Really
least
segregate the companies and to give
free
more.
yourself up. Yeah.
Yeah. And not even, it's funny, this trip that I was gone in Miami with the intern Kate working on marketing and Josie being able to really just focus on the agents and transaction coordination and team meetings, and having Ashley only 1 day a week helping with that property management while I was gone, was the best that my company has ever ran with me out of town. And I came back
Amazing.
and Josie didn't have a cold sore and didn't call off work, which has never happened before. Normally, if I'm gone for more than 2 days, I come back and she's like, because we were working together. Her job wasn't her job, it was
Yeah.
our job. And I'm
Yeah.
really, really working on that. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff in store for some of our other podcasts coming up.
Oh,
And we're
yes.
doing our best to kind of keep it together, keep on task. And I feel like I hope people are loving it. And as always, if you have questions, drop them in. We'll do our best to answer those.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear from other people whether
Yeah.
they've gone through this process as well, like growing their business. When was that point where they started to delegate and separate themselves? Are they still in that process? Do they
Yeah.
feel like they're going through it? Could we be like an agony aunt where they can send us their stress stories and we can talk
Yes.
about them? That'd be
Yeah.
really interesting. So yeah, as always, I think we highly recommend this book again. And if you're halfway through, it'd be really interesting next time we pick up on this,
To go
what
through
has
the
happened.
rest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And hopefully, yeah, hopefully my guy is back by the next time we do our recording. So hopefully when we're on that one, I can say that I have stepped away more from the product. But let's wait and see.
I love it.
Fantastic. All
From
right. Well, thanks so
Kentucky.
much. Yeah, from the UK. We've actually got sun for a change. So have a good one, guys. And yeah, look forward to the next podcast. See you
Love it.
later.
See you then. Bye.